All right, so here we are. We've got Santiago Lopez on the webcam here, straight from Ensenada, Mexico, Baja. Super exciting. We're going to get the chance to taste through three different wines of his from his estate there, Solar Fortune. And it's going to be a great opportunity to get to see three monovarietal wines from the same vintage, from the same winery, from the same vineyard. Beso Imports, the company that I own, is specializing in wines from Mexico, specifically from this northern region in Baja. And Santiago's makes some of my favorite wines. So this is a real treat that Beth from Bayleaf has chosen these for the tasting, and we're really excited about it. So thanks, Santiago, for being available for this. This is awesome. Santiago is also a superstar dad and entrepreneur and husband and plenty of other things. So it's like amazing to get him in a window where we can actually just focus on wine. So thanks for participating.
It's my pleasure, taking advantage of technology nowadays, during COVID times to sit down and be able to have this virtual tasting, go over the wines. It's great. I'm very happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, I know we were going to try to keep it kind of limited, so we'll buzz through a few things here. I want to do just a very, very quick introduction to wine in Mexico and then wine in Northern Baja in particular. And then we'll get right into your estate and straight onto the wines. So for viewers that don't know about Mexico's history with wine, it's actually the first place in the New World that grapes were planted to make wine back in 1521. So this goes all the way back to the Spanish explorer Cortez. And it may be the only really good thing that he did was insist that people in New Spain at the time plant vines whenever they colonize like new areas. Almost 2.5 centuries later, you end up with the first grapes being planted in Northern Baja. And so we're talking just after the U.S. signed its Constitution, so late 1791. And this area is today Mexico's premier viticultural region. Most people know it as Valle de Guadalupe in general, although that is the name of just the northernmost of 5 valleys that make up the region in general. It's 65 miles south of the US-Mexico border, right on the Pacific coastline. And there's a number of different reasons why this region is the premier region in Mexico. And we're going to let Santiago go into that a bit. Another quick thing is that there's actually 13 states in Mexico that grapes are planted to make wine. But it's a bit of a reach. You have to get into like real high altitude, or there has to be some sort of real specific geographical situation in order to grow wine in that area. What keeps the wines in this region really, really well balanced in terms of acidity and structure has a lot to do with the proximity to the Pacific. It tempers the climate, making it almost sort of a Mediterranean climate. So the wines are way more balanced and finesse than you'd normally think of for wines from this far south, latitudinally speaking. So let's see. Is there anything else you want to add to that, Santiago, or should we jump right into your estate?
No, that's a great introduction. I would only like to add that Valle de Guadalupe region is around 32 degrees latitude. Mm-hmm. So we're on the southern edge of this sort of like fringe area where you usually consider that you can produce wines with the appropriate weather. And like you said, it's usually considered a hot weather region. However, because of all the influence from the ocean, there's a really particular elegance that you get from the wines out of this region. And hopefully we're going to find that on the wines that we'll be drinking today.
Yeah. Well, and your site is so specific. Your vineyards, I remember the first time coming up to your vineyard site, and it was like rolling into paradise. It's just amazing. It's like almost a canyon at that point. The valley walls are so tight. Tell us a little bit about your winery, where it's situated and what makes it unique, why your wines sing the way that they do.
Sure. So Solar Fortune is a family-owned and operated winery. My dad is an astrophysicist. However, he is a big wine enthusiast, and he's been making wine for the last 30 years. However, he never really thought he was going to do this as a business. So we were lucky enough to buy this property in the early 1990s. And I did my winemaking studies from UC Davis in California, and we took off. Now, there's a couple of things that we didn't really understand or appreciate enough back then, which we really do now. And as you said, the property that we have is basically hidden in one of these little like veins, like ravines that are on the top northeastern edge of Valle de Guadalupe.
So cool.
So there's very distinct differences between what type of microclimate we get there compared to the central part of the valley. So we have very deep sandy soils that are a consequence of the water that would go down through that ravine into Valle for many, many years in the past. But we also, the ravine is basically like a wind funnel. So we have lots of wind every day from like 9 a.m. to like 5, 6 p.m., which works as a temperature control. But it also makes the canyon very cold at night. So we have a really good temperature gradient, and we have a couple of degrees of less, like lower temperatures compared to the rest of the valley. So there's some distinct qualities that the grapes get coming out of that vineyard compared to the rest of the valley, which have become a staple of Solar Fortuna. And we've discovered this as the years go by. We've worked harder and harder towards sort of like letting the grapes express themselves in that fashion. And we planted our vineyard in 2008. We are an estate-grown single vineyard winery. Our first commercial vintage was 2012. So we've been making wine for 8 years now. And the latest development is we just moved to our newest winery, our new bodega, which is right in front of the ocean. So we're basically the first oceanfront winery in Mexico as of right now. So we're very excited about that.
Wow. Well, one of my favorite wines from Valle de Guadalupe is your Solar Fortuna Elixir Cortis from 2013. So right off the bat, you guys were just knocking it out of the park. But the wines keep evolving, and every single year they just keep getting better. I mean, every vintage is just, you go from strength to strength. I'm curious, in my opinion, you have this as a winemaker, you're defined by these dual factors of ambition to constantly improve, and then your openness to constantly ask a question so that you can always be learning. That's got to be a big factor in why you improve so much. But like, what else? Tell me, has there been just like great vintages as well? I mean, we're building up to the 2018, which is just fantastic. I love those wines. But spell that out a little bit for us. How did you get so good so quick?
Well, I think it comes down to passion and not having too much of an ego, involved in winemaking. Mm-hmm. I am the winemaker that will ask anyone that cares to answer questions. I'm lucky enough to have also good connections at Davis with my teachers. So, I can go back to them and ask them a couple of questions. And it's just a matter of, every time we produce a wine, even if we're super happy with it, we're also super critical because there's always stuff that you can do better for next year, right? There's always new challenges. And if there's something that I've learned is that as soon as I think that I really figure out the whole winemaking business, life just has a way of showing you that you really don't know anything, right? You need to continue to study and improve and learn. Yeah, once again, I think it's just, having lots of passion for the wine and just, trying to improve yourself every year.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, because you're creating delights for all of us to enjoy up here. I really, really appreciate that. Really. Thanks. I want to, move straight onto the wines, and we can cover more bits and pieces as we go here. So again, everybody, I think, knows that we're tasting all 2018s. We are going to start with the Mourvèdre and then do the Syrah and then the Petit Verdot. Do you want to talk a little bit why you chose this tasting order, why you recommended this as a way to progress through the wines?
Sure. So what we're watching over here is just wine structure. So we're going to start with the Mourvèdre, which, funny enough, the way the Mourvèdre has adapted to our microclimate and our sandy soils is in a very elegant and subtle way. You don't really get this super heavy, deep Mourvèdre. So we're going to drink that first because we want to start at the lower intensity levels and then build up Syrah and then the Petit Verdot. so that we can really appreciate all the nuance of the wines. If we start with this, with the more structured wines, and then we go back to the lighter ones, you know, there might be some things that we could lose in there.
Okay.
And having said that, another thing that I really think it's important to notice is we have 4 different varietals at the vineyard, working at the vineyard right now, which is the Mourvèdre, Syrah, Petit Verdot, and Cabernet, which we're not tasting today. And the Mourvèdre and the Syrah, which are grown varietals, they tend to be the most consistent when it comes to just performance on different vintages. The Cabernet and the Petit Verdot, they have some amazing vintages, and some vintages are a little bit more complicated. But we're going to start with the Mourvèdre. So I don't know if you have your glass ready, Patrick.
I do.
But so we're drinking the 2018 Mourvèdre. This wine has 12 months of second use French oak. And I have to say, this is probably the most elegant out of the 2018 vintages. There's a lot of nuance in this wine. Very nice acidity. And this is probably the most savory wine out of the ones that we're going to be trying today. So it's not really like a fruit bomb. It's more like you're going to get like flowers and spices. I love this wine. I have to say, the 2018, this is my favorite wine out of the bunch.
Well, for all those watching, we'd encourage you to take a moment to smell this wine in depth before you try tasting it. It's one of the things that's one of my favorite points about all Santiago's wines is this incredible nose on every wine he makes. I mean, they're so unique and they're so expressive. And you know, he named some of the points you can smell in there, but if you really take time, you coax out all these like amazing, more subtle, like floral elements that are just the kind of, you know, it's that nuance that makes these wines really sing.
And production wise, for the Mourvèdre, I think for the 2018 vintage, which was a low production year, I think we had somewhere around 250 cases. That's right.
Wow, incredible! Awesome to get a chance to even just get your hands on something like this. What do you think? What's your read on how long this is going to last? It's got quite a bit of tannin structure to it. I feel like I want to recommend between now and the next 10 years. I could see this resolving in about 10 years.
So this is one of those tricky wines in terms of like your initial approach to the wine. It feels like a soft, lighter wine, sort of like the same experience that you have when you drink a Pinot Noir, right? Which initially it feels on the lighter side, but then there is like a really balanced tannin structure to it, and there's some really good acidity to the wine as well.
Real bright red fruits, like cranberry almost elements,
really make the wine feel alive. You know, it's crisp and there's a lot of energy on the wine, and it's gonna make this wine have a pretty elegant, probably 8 to 10 year, I think, evolution process in which it's going to continue to get better and better and better. But yeah, it's tricky because, like I said, you initially you look at the color and you get that first sip out of it, and it feels like a lighter wine. But then as you pay attention, you can tell that there is really good structure behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. What a delight.
One final note on the Mourvèdre is the aftertaste on this wine is just fantastic. It lingers, it stays with you. The acidity makes you salivate a little bit on the sides of the mouth. But yeah, the aftertaste on the wine is probably my favorite element of the Mourvèdre.
You know what? Actually, now that you mentioned that, I forgot. I wanted to see if you had any recommendations of what people might pair with the Mourvèdre. I know you guys won an award with your previous Mourvèdre and a tacos de canasta, which is a really, really sort of like fatty pork-based dish. Do you think you'd recommend that with like something like real juicy and fatty again with this Mourvèdre? It's got quite a bit different character than that 2017.
Yeah, so the 2017 vintage was a little bit lighter, but it had more acidity to it. So that additional acidity worked really well to balance out the greasiness of the taco de canasta, you know, of the pork and the oil with the lard, which is how you produce that dish.
For the 2018 right now, I loved that thing. Oh.
For the 2018, there's a little bit more structure to it, but there's less acidity as well, which comes to, you know, a more of a rounder wine, basically. Definitely works with pork dishes. You know, maybe the taco de canasta, maybe not so much because of all that additional, like the oil and the lard. Like it might not be as good as 2017, but pork stews are going to work very well with this. But also dishes that are a little bit more neutral in flavor, mushrooms or
Yeah, sure.
risottos or stuff like that. They're not too creamy. You know, they're more like sort of like earthy flavors. I think this wine would go very well with that.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the Syrah just so we can have some comparison there. Oh my God, look at
So
the color of this one.
Syrah. Syrah is my favorite varietal in general terms. The Syrah that we have coming out of our vineyard, the way it's adapted to our microclimate, it's very unique because you have this very floral Syrah. It's not,
Violets. Oh,
yeah, it's, you know, it's not really like a super heavy reductive Syrah. You have lots of flowers. You do have some black fruit, but it's not over, you know, it's not too dominant. You get a little bit of spices as well. And that acidity makes the wine stay very, very crisp and fresh. Once again, I think the aging on this wine is going to be fantastic.
mm-hmm.
Um,
You think maybe
so
more
yes.
like 15 years on this one?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
No problem with the acidity and the tannins
Yeah.
that it has. Every year, I have to say, it's probably our favorite varietal. It's adapted so well to our circumstance, to our vineyard circumstances. And it's a little bit of a challenge for me. Like every year I know, you know, I have to make a better Syrah than the previous year. And I think it's actually our varietal that has the most like international medals and high scores from like wine guides and that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's, I love the Syrah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like it's got this classic nose of black pepper. I mean, in a blind tasting, you'd nail this as a Syrah, no questions asked. But like some dark, like some black licorice notes in the palate, dark fruits, chocolatey kind of notes, even a little bit of that sort of bacon fat that you get out of Syrah sometimes. Yeah. I mean, this is just like it's a mouthful. Do you decant at all ever? I mean, I know usually
I don't.
Yeah,
I am actually I never decant any of the wines that I drink. I'll open up the bottle of wine, I'll pour a glass, and I'll just take my time. So it's basically like a small decantation that I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
Where I'm letting the wine evolve in the glass as I am like drinking it and seeing the evolution. I think that's one of the most fun parts of drinking a wine is just seeing how it changes once you pour it into the glass.
Yeah.
But there is definitely an integration process. And once again, these are 2018 vintages. They were just bottled at the beginning of this year. So they've been in the bottle for about 8 months. So they're still young wines. They're still integrating. But it's not a wine that you need to decant it. Like so you can pour it and it's ready to drink right away, but it will continue to sort of like, you know, develop as you're drinking it. This wine is really good for pairing. The spices and the acidity, those are, in my opinion, I think two of the best elements when it comes to food pairing. If you have like a really fruity, sweetish wine, they're a little bit more complicated to pair. But when you have a wine like the Syrah, that it's a little bit more neutral when it comes to the fruit and the lasting, the sweet aftertaste of the fruit. And with this amount of acidity, you can really work wonders when it comes to food pairing. We at the restaurant, we pair this with, we have this octopus barbecue tostada with a little bit of yellow corn that works very, very well with this wine. We have a portobello with mole, with brown mole, where the mole and the Syrah really work amazing together as well. So yeah, this is a wine where you can really play along with food and just find different combinations and do some really fun stuff.
Wow. Oh God. Oh, it makes me want to get down to Mexico. Wish we could do it. What are we talking for production on this one? How many of these did you make this year?
Syrah 2018, we only made around 160 cases. That's
160 cases.
And we're down to around 90 right now. So it pains me every time I see another floor of that palette disappear. It just, you know, I want to cry. But
wow.
you know.
Well, let's move right on to this Petit Verdot. Now, am I wrong that this is the first vintage that you've kept this as a monovarietal?
No, you're correct. And
so it was always blended previously.
It was always blended. And so here's the thing that happens with the Petit Verdot. This Petit Verdot, every year we would try it out of barrels. And it was oh so good, so rich and just bold, and there was so many things going on. And you would usually drink it and be like, "This is amazing," but it's maybe too much, right? Or at
Ah,
least for
yeah, Petit Verdot
for
has that problem.
yeah. So 2018, we changed a couple of things at the vineyard and at the winery. In 2018 was one of those vintages where the tannins and the ripening of the seed and the acidity, everything came together very, very nicely. The fact that this is a 2018 Petit Verdot that we're able to drink and enjoy right now, that is just a good vintage, good harvest, and good winemaking, making this like really big wine, making it drinkable and approachable at such an early stage.
Yeah,
But when it comes to aging, this wine, 25 years,
yeah,
probably. I don't know.
yeah, yeah. I'd agree. Yeah, no, this is like, like big, bold, and muscular, but then it like has all the nuance of floral aromas. You've got lilac in there, violet. I mean,
Yeah, that's very
even
unique.
savory notes like sage. I mean, I feel like you can smell really the plants adjacent to your vineyards there.
And the biggest challenge that we always had with Petit Verdot was harvest dates. The evolution of Petit Verdot at the vineyard is really complicated when it comes to acidity and ripeness balance. This vintage, I think we really harvested the right day at the right time, because Petit Verdot can either be very herbaceous, or it
Mm-hmm.
can be super like baked fruit and like just like
Yeah,
jammy.
syrupy. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
And just being able to pick up the wine where it's like there's still a little bit of herbal fresh notes on it, but it's not too intense, but there is fruit, but it's not like super ripened fruit. So yeah, so I think this is what we want to reproduce like for our 2019 and or 2020 vintages, when it comes to harvest dates. Um,
okay.
it, and it's very unique getting like all these flowery, like for me this is a flower dominated wine.
Yeah, yeah,
there
absolutely.
there is there is a lot of fruit on this, but I think it's the flowers that really sort of like sing and lead you through the tasting experience.
Yeah. Well, and this is one that's especially going to be interesting to watch it evolve. I mean, this is one like you get a wine like this, you never buy one bottle. You got to buy like
Yeah,
3, 4, 5 because you want to drink one right away, see where it's at, and then a few others just to get a sense of where is this going to go. I mean, this is going to be just an
yeah.
absolute education in a glass.
Very quickly, because I think I skipped over this. For the Syrah, we're actually doing 100%. It's American oak, but it's only around 20% new oak on the Syrah.
Okay.
Um, Syrah is a very reductive varietal, so it really takes it like a really long time to really integrate the oak properly, I feel. So every year we actually use less new oak, just because we really don't want the oak to be a protagonist on the wine. We actually want the grape to sort of like lead the way.
I
So
appreciate that.
we're using 20% new oak, American oak on the Syrah. And for the Petit Verdot, we're actually using American oak as well, but it's all of the oak that we use on this wine, it's either second use or neutral oak. So we're not really going for tertiary aroma impact on this wine, even though there's a little bit, but it's very, very subtle. We're going more for the evolution that the wine goes through when you put it on an oak barrel for 12, 14 months.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there you're just talking about your wines in general. That's you started off talking about the Syrah, but now you're just sort of saying that this is your sort of winemaking philosophy in general.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oak is like makeup, right? Uh, the prettier the wine, the less makeup it needs, basically, in this case.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't really make sense if I gave you all this speech about this beautiful microclimate and our beautiful vineyard. We have all these amazing grapes, but then you just cover that up with oak. It doesn't make sense to me.
Totally.
So we really want to see the grapes sing, and then the oak is just basically like a backup dancer, right? Just sort of like uh, helping out, with the small details at the end.
Yeah.
But it really has to be the grapes that express themselves when you drink wine.
Yeah. Nice. I really appreciate the way that you make these wines. It is just such an elegant balance there. I know we're not going to keep people for too long here, but I just want to say like a couple things that people we sell to really do care about is the fact that you're organically farmed, you know, the fact that it's all estate grown fruit, hand picked. I mean, this level of attention to detail and, you know, this artisanal element. Is there anything else you'd add when you talk about what makes your wines what they are, why you're as unique as you are? I mean, of course you got your specific site, but anything else
Yeah.
that you want people to know?
Well, the more we get into the winemaking world, the more we understand we need to be responsible with our impact with nature and with our fields and our vineyards. The fact that we're being organically farmed has nothing to do with a sales tactic. We actually don't really announce
That's,
that
yeah, it's
commercially.
not something that's
It's
on your labels, or yeah, you're not trying
yeah,
to be certified. Yeah.
it's more of us being responsible with the land that we're working, you know, just sort of like reintegrating the elements into the land and just making sure that, you know, we have a positive impact on nature around our property. And it's just, you know, it's the smart thing to do. You know, you've got to have a healthy vineyard and a healthy land in order to continue to produce good quality grapes and wine for the next 100, 200, 300 years.
All the future Lopez's yet to come.
Yeah, my baby, you know, he's 2 years old, you know, I better leave him a healthy vineyard, you know, because hopefully he'll be the one that's going to be really enjoying having a winery. I'll do all the hard work and then he'll get to have fun. But yeah, it's just a matter of like your understanding of winemaking evolves. It's not really about so much only about the finished product, but about the process.
Yeah.
And you really want to have you want to make you want to be responsible, but also consistent in your philosophy all the way from the vineyard to the finished product. And it's not just that it tastes good, but that everything that went along into producing this bottle of wine is something that it's leaving a positive impact on nature, on society, on the workers that work the land. You want to make sure that everything that is involved in the winemaking process is just
ecologically conscious or holistically conscious.
exactly. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll drink to that. Cheers, my friend. Thank you so much for participating in this and bringing these wines to the world. And thanks for everybody who tuned into this. I hope everybody kind of picks out their favorites and helps Beth navigate her way to whatever selection she thinks is the best for you guys. That's an amazing shop. Coupeville wouldn't be the same without her. So thanks a lot for that. And thanks, Santiago, for participating.
Thank you so much. Hopefully, you know, everyone enjoyed the wines. Go back, try them again, you know, after 20 minutes that they've been open. And yeah, let us know which one's your favorite. And if you're ever down in Mexico, let us know. You know, we'd love to have you visit our vineyard or our new winemaking facility.
Salud.